Eco Money on Money FM 89.3.
From reporting on record-breaking temperatures, green bonds, blue bonds, brown bonds, and even rhino bonds, to sharing the latest news and views when it comes to sustainability investment. Close to 5 years ago, Eco Money was launched as a podcast on Money FM 89.3, and thanks to you, it grew to a weekly slot with a steady following, humbly bagging a few awards along the way. Now, this is the last episode, and for this episode, I wanted to share with you some of my favorites and highlights from the past 5 years. Now, there are, of course, too many for me to cram into these 10 minutes, and you can go and check out past Eco Money episodes on the audio app. And I'm going to start off today by sharing with you my personal favorite, which is what investors need to know about an IPCC report.
Now, I've always been very passionate about the environment, even from a very early age. But since becoming a mother, I often feel my brows furrow at the future I'm leaving behind for my 2 children. Multiple scenarios of which were highlighted in a graphic in the latest report by the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC. The report highlights that the extent to which current and future generations will experience a hotter and different world depends on the choices now and in the near term. Future emission scenarios were drawn up by the IPCC in this latest report, and I can clearly see the impact on my parents' generation, born around the 1950s, my generation of the 1980s, and now the future of my children. All set to suffer from continued rising heat. And as the report highlights, there is a rapidly closing window of opportunity to secure a livable and sustainable future for all. But this isn't new, though. In 2018, the IPCC highlighted the unprecedented scale of the challenge required to keep warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius. 5 years later, that challenge has become even greater due to a continued increase in greenhouse gas emissions. The pace and scale of what has been done so far and current plans are insufficient to tackle climate change, according to the report. Widespread and rapid changes in the atmosphere, ocean, cryosphere, and biosphere has already occurred. Human-caused climate change is already affecting many weather and climate extremes in every region across the globe. So what can we do? Well, the report says deep, rapid and sustained mitigation and accelerated implementation of adaptation actions in this decade would reduce projected losses and damages for humans and ecosystems. Okay, but what does that mean and what should we do? Well, according to the report, there are multiple feasible and effective options to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to human-caused climate change, and they're available right now. I'll give you some examples that are highlighted in the report. Reducing the conversion of natural ecosystems, reducing methane in agriculture, and on the energy front, investing in resilient power systems while also reducing methane from coal, oil and gas. What is Earth Day and why does it matter? Now, the answer may seem self-explanatory, but let's take a look at the numbers. Earth Day has been around since 1970, and according to the official Earth Day website, 1 billion individuals are mobilized for action every Earth Day, and 190 plus countries are now engaged. But the question is, how did this all start? And here for you, a special audio clip of the first Earth Day coverage on CBS from 1970. The clip starts off with a speech from Professor Barry Commoner, a biologist.
This planet is threatened with destruction, and we who live in it with death. The heavens reek, the waters below are foul, children die in infancy, and we and the world, which is our home, live on the brink of nuclear annihilation. We are in a crisis of survival. This is a CBS News special, Earth Day,
A Question of Survival with CBS News correspondent Walter Cronkite.
Good evening. A unique day in American history is ending, a day set aside for a nationwide outpouring of mankind seeking its own survival. Earth Day, a day dedicated to enlisting all the citizens of a bountiful country in the common cause of saving life from the deadly byproducts of that bounty, the fouled skies, the filthy waters, the littered earth. As a demonstration, its success was mixed, beyond expectations here, far below there. No one now can know exactly how many took part. We do have an idea how many planned participation: student groups in 2,000 colleges and 10,000 lower schools, citizen groups in 2,000 communities. By one measurement, Earth Day failed. It did not unite. It did attract that broad cross-section of America its sponsors wanted, not quite. Its demonstrators were predominantly young, predominantly white, predominantly anti-Nixon. Often its protests appeared frivolous, its protesters curiously carefree. Yet the gravity of the message of Earth Day still came through. Act or die.
Fast forward 20 years, and in 1990, Earth Day went global, mobilizing 200 million people in 141 countries and lifting environmental issues onto the world stage. Now, when you think of alternative meats, jackfruit may not be the first thing that comes to mind, but this humble fruit has been used in vegetarian and vegan dishes for years, and more recently, it's been on the rise as a meat alternative in curries or even pulled pork as a substitute. In fact, you only have to run a quick search on the internet, and articles with headlines such as 18 jackfruit recipes that will make you forget all about meat will pop up. Now, one Singapore-based startup is betting big on this trend. Karana has plans to take jackfruit global, starting from our little red dot. And I caught up with Blair Critchin, co-founder of Karana, to find out more.
We saw this sort of emerging need to move beyond just removing animals from our food system, which is what a lot of the conversation has been about, from plant-based meats and meat alternatives, to going a level deeper to think about how we ensure food security for the future, and stop the destruction being wrought on soil and ecosystems from monocrop industrial agriculture. So what that means is basically, some of the commodity crops that we rely on, like soy and wheat, are planted without any other crops around, in sort of fields and fields of this. And there's an over-reliance of fertilizers to make them grow, and that's actually destroying the soil.
Quite often, as we bring vibrant hues together, we seldom stop to think about where these colors or dyes come from. Well, one company that does think about this and thinks about it a whole lot is Colorifix, and that's because they've come up with a sustainable manner to create colors using science. And just to find out how this works, we're joined now by one of the founders, Orya Koni.
So Colorifix actually started because Jim, my co-founder, and I engaged in water quality projects using synthetic biology. We were working on developing sensors to see if water was essentially safe to drink or not from the presence of different things in the water, like heavy metals such as arsenic. So we went to places that are affected by this, and they're mostly in South and Southeast Asia. And that's where we actually got exposed to the scale of the impact of the textile industry, because when we asked people, what else is in your water that bothers you? A lot of the chemicals that they told us about actually ended up coming from this industry. And that's where we got to understand that the wet processing side of textiles, which is one of the largest industries on the planet by necessity, has such an enormous impact on water use, chemical use, and energy use, and ultimately is one of the most environmentally impactful industrial activities we do as a species. Given our passion for what we do in working with nature, using natural systems to essentially create things, we thought, well, our sensor is based on microorganisms that change color if the water's not safe to drink. Wouldn't it be great if we could change the color of the fabric and instead of monitoring for these chemicals, replace them?
Davos recently announced that it's the first digital wealth advisor to launch a multi-asset ESG investment offerings for retail investors in Asia. Are you sure you're the first? And what exactly are you offering here?
Great question. Thank you, Rachel. Basically, we're really excited because we want to offer something that was previously not available to especially retail investors here in Singapore. I think that there are several ESG related funds or offerings from individual banks or private banks, etc. But there's never been a ready-made portfolio that retail investors can access that is a very robust ESG investing framework. It's across equities and fixed income, so it's multi-asset. Also, what we've done is actually work very closely with the leading global and local fund managers to develop this original ESG portfolio. It's all Sing dollar denominated, or in case of fixed income, it's Sing dollar hedged. So it removes any unnecessary FX risk for Singapore-based investors, because a lot of funds exist, but they're US dollar or euro denominated, unfortunately.
This week's Eco Money comes to you from the Scottish countryside. Yes, it's school holiday season, and like many travellers, this year when planning my travels, I've been looking for eco-conscious alternatives. From a carbon-neutral car rental company to green-certified local hotels, the options are endless now. And I'm opting for a slower pace of travel as well, immersing myself and my family in experiences that are less mass market and, I guess in my case, a little bit more farmer's market. And it seems I'm not alone. According to a report by Expedia Group Media Solutions, it highlighted that 90% of consumers look for sustainable options when traveling, though 70% feel overwhelmed navigating available options and on starting the process of becoming a more sustainable traveler.
On that note, I'd like to thank you for joining me on this journey with Eco Money. I hope you've enjoyed all the episodes that we've put together over the past 5 years. I know I certainly have. And I hope, if anything, we've grown together, learned together on this sustainability journey. And if you'd like to stay in touch, you can look for me on Instagram, Rachel_Kelly360, Rachel Kelly 360 on X. You've been listening to the last episode of Eco Money on Money FM 89.3. Signing out for now, I'm Rachel Kelly.